Er wordt nog wat gekeken, dames en heren, naar het geluid. Excuses voor de vertraging daarvan. Maar niet minder hartelijk welkom hier vanochtend. Bij deze eerste CELTH Work, zoals we dat noemen. Ik ben Hans Dominicus en ik ben programmadirecteur van het CELTH-programma. Nee, dat weet ik. Dit is ook niet alleen maar voor de video nu, om de zaak nog te redden. Dan kunnen jullie achteraf horen wat ik gezegd heb. En heel hartelijk welkom ook aan de werkveldvertegenwoordigers die we hier hebben. U herinnert zich de roadshow, jullie herinneren de roadshow. De laatste daarvan hebben wij gehad op 29 januari in Leeuwarden. En die hebben we geëvalueerd en daar kwamen heel enthousiaste reacties uit. 84% van de aanwezigen zei van, wat leuk, ik heb hier dingen uitgehaald die ik in mijn eigen werkomgeving kan gebruiken. En dat was een reden voor ons om te zeggen, wij gaan door hiermee. Wij gaan door binnen het programma van CELTH om met elkaar in contact te komen, over je vak te praten. En met name ook, wat zijn nu de vragen van de markt? En daar is het nodige in veranderd in de afgelopen periode. Want niet dat er wat is veranderd in die markt, maar we hebben een ronde gedaan langs het bedrijfsleven. Oh ja, totally correct. It is bilingual, so half of my sentences are in Dutch and the other half are in English. So in the end, it's like a computer, where you can have one half of the data on one disk and the other one, and you can reproduce everything. Sorry, yes, totally correct. The thing is, I made my notes in Dutch, so you automatically start in Dutch. Anyhow, a very warm welcome. Since the last roadshow we had, as I said before, since the last roadshow, there are some changes in the CELTH program. We focused more on the needs of the industry. And we traced the needs of the industry by interviews. And Roland helped me with that. We had quite interesting discussions. And it was after a couple of interviews, it was already clear that there is a focused need from the industry on what is the knowledge gap, as we might call it. So that's the reason why in the new way we work, CELTH Work is an internal session between lecturers, researchers, PhDs, together with each other from the three institutions and from the universities, together on what are the challenges for the market, including the representatives of the market. So we invited today about 10 representatives of the markets, which we know they have a good view on what has to be done. And the focus there is the next 5 or 10 years. Let me just see, this is the new way. It's quite complex. I did it specifically for the academics, so make it slightly more complex. So actually that is CELTH, and we have 4 different areas where we focus on. And these 4 areas are determined to be the major demands from the market, which is the future consumer. And there we have the discussion today. Another one is business models and value creation. That will be another CELTH Work in the next 1.5 years. Product development and destination development in a complex environment. It sounds already a bit complex. But that is something where public bodies, entrepreneurs struggle with. And sustainable development and of business models. That's a very wide one. We had our first seminar, our first conference on that one on the 5th of June in Breda. And we have some good attendance from the industry, and those seminars are meant specifically for the industry, where we bring results and feedback results from projects we are doing. And this is the way how we work. And around these 4 topics, we now have 4 task forces. And those task forces link together in a linking pin construction with the program office. And the program office is me and 1 assistant. And the core team, and the core team are now 4 coordinators, and I'd like to introduce them to you. That is Jeroen Oskamp from Stenden, in case you don't know him. That is Arend Hardorf from NHTV, and he is supported by Marisa de Brito. Margot Tempelman from HZ, and myself, that's the core team. And the core team only does the process management. And the power of what we are doing is in the task forces. And in the task forces, we have coordinators, and they link with the process team from time to time. But that's where the discussion starts, and that's where we invite you as well in the future to discuss with what are the needs of the market. So we bring together there the knowledge we have, and the other hand, we will have in the task forces also representative from the business sector and from the public sector. And they will help us focus on the needs of the market. And I'd like to introduce you the coordinators, Diana Korteweg-Maris, who has the lead today. And she's the coordinator for the consumer challenge, actually tomorrow's consumer. Graciela Carimejo is the coordinator for the business concept and value creation. Leen Fokker has that role for destination and product development. And Ko Koens, who is not here today because he is on a conference in Germany, is that for sustainable development. So there you have 4 major major coordinators which will help us to focus and to answer the questions the market presents to us. And within those teams we have supporters from your side. They're invited already. If you are not invited yet, you say, well, I want to have a task, I have bright ideas, etc. Please make yourself known to one of the coordinators. Okay, then some news. The Ministry of Economic Affairs, you might know, and we have the network gastvrijheidsindustrie, and they have challenged the total industry by saying, well, we want you are able to become a top team in the future. We have economic top sectors. If you want to be a top sector, go for it. And we always said, well, we are a top sector. Hospitality and leisure is a top sector. Now we can prove it. So a top team is formed, and there is under the top team is a working group, and CELTH is part of both bodies. And thanks to Diane, who is part of the working group, we are happy to announce that we are now leading 3 iconic projects within the 8 agendas which are formed. The outcome is that we might together bring the hospitality industry in the Netherlands on a higher level. Okay, then we have some new relationships. You might know the project list we had, but we have some new projects to announce. Recently, CLC FECTA, which is the sector organization for the meeting and event industry, has signed an agreement for the next 3 years. Thanks, Pim, for all your work done in that. And we will fill in that with project later this year. OED, the new formed tour operator, which has formed from the old bankrupt tour operator, is asking us to help them with setting up a new way of thinking about their product development. And Diana Nijs is helping them with imagineering ideas. And it's a challenging one, that one specifically, because it feeds back a lot of new knowledge to the educational part. And MBTC is about to sign a 2-year contract with us to see how we can help in destinations, tracing data, etc., etc. And that's still open what we do there. And that's a quite important one, and I left that to the last moment, and that is that Reiswerk, which is the cooperation between the unions and the ANVR, Association of Travel Agencies and Tour Operators, just signed a 4-year program where we will have some PhD. We will invite PhDs to get into new knowledge areas linked to the different topics for the task forces. Andre, this is brand new because actually we just finished it last week. Something about that.
Yeah, hello, I'm Dr. Andre Mitash. I'm the research manager in tourism at NHTV. And just a few logistical details that I think many of you are curious to know about these PhD positions that are opening up. So this is the Reiswerk Travel Industry PhD projects. It means 4 PhD positions that are co-financed by CELTH and Reiswerk are now opening at Wageningen University. These projects are focused on the changes in the Dutch outbound travel industry. The industry is changing so quickly that basically they need really fundamental knowledge that you can only get out of a PhD project. Applications are open for ambitious people with a Master of Science degree, and we hope that that includes a number of you in this room. The applications are due to be handed in on the 15th of September. So depending on your vacation plans, it's either a lot of time or no time at all. And you're invited to apply for one or a combination of several of 4 topics that don't really map one-to-one with these themes, but fit with them quite closely. But these topics are specifically aimed at the outbound tourism industry based in the Netherlands. So the societal significance of travel, the travel labor market, business innovations in the tourism value chain, and changing consumer behavior. And these applications will be judged by a jury composed of folks from Wageningen and representatives of the industry. So we really look forward to your applications. And the last comment I want to make about this process is, if this is something that might be for you, and if you're interested in applying, please, it is in your interest not to make it a secret. Talk to me, talk to the other people who might be involved, share. Because, again, there are 4 places that are more or less linked to these 4 themes, and if everyone applies for one theme, then the jury's going to be in a pretty bad situation in terms of putting all this knowledge that needs to be developed together. So please, talk amongst each other and share, and good luck.
Marisa. It will be on the CELTH website from tomorrow. Yeah. Then, now we are switching, these were some general announcements, now we're switching to the topic of today, tomorrow's consumer. Is it totally different? Is it not? Who knows? But in order to start up this discussion, we have 3 keynote speakers. We trace them, we thank them up front already for their support and their willingness to present here. We have Hedwig Wassink, you might know him, but if there's somebody who is focusing on what our consumers needs in the future, it's Hedwig. We have Olivier Ponti, who is head of research at Amsterdam Marketing, and my colleague there, on data-driven activities, data-driven actions, that's it. And we have Roland van Kralingen, you might know him from his books, and he helped me a lot in designing the new way CELTH should go, and is also very active in new concepts, new ideas, and new markets. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give you to ask your attention for the first one of the keynote speakers, Hedwig Wassink. Als je deze opdoet, dan hoop ik in ieder geval op mijn video heb ik geluid.
I probably have to do the same thing acoustically and then have this device just for the registration. And does it back on? Oh, no, no. Yep. Thank you. Diana Korteweg-Maris, thank you for inviting me. I prepared for a presentation in Dutch, so most of my slides are in Dutch. Content available in the meantime in English. I try to fit in English. I'll do the presentation in English. So it's a language course for you as well, because you'll understand what I'm saying, but you can read what it would have meant in Dutch. I'm here as partner of Cool Experience, which is a group of very inspired, motivated people for change on experiences. We all like to deliver, but also undergo cool experiences. What's cool? That whatever makes you happy and puts a smile on your face. I'm also the chairman of the e-commerce committee of thuiswinkel.org. In that respect, I get in contact with lots of different companies in the Netherlands, mainly from the e-commerce field, but e-commerce, the E will drop off because in the end it's all commerce. And my experience lies in the functions which you see below, which I have taken over a period of 35 years. The consumer has the power. Why do we say that? Because there's been a big study running, Shopping 2020. If you have ever heard of Shopping 2020? Ooh, that's a minority. After today that will change. Shopping 2020 is a study which was initialized by thuiswinkel.org. All the branch organizations of different branches hopped on board. All the major consultancies took part. But most important, 460 managers of different companies in Holland participated in 19 experts group. This built a view on what will the future bring us in different scenarios. And more than 12,000 consumers gave their opinions through research of KFK. So it's a well-balanced study, and maybe a report that won't disappear in a desk drawer, but actually will be translated into the action needed to be ready for what's facing us. I have a small video just to illustrate what Shopping 2020 is. And I hope it will run. En het does.
Meer macht, meer mogelijkheden en meer aanbieders om uit te kiezen. Uw klant is voortdurend onderweg naar meer comfort, meer betaalgemak en meer toegevoegde waarde. Uw klant wil aandacht en is weg van macht. Alles wat de klant niet bevalt, staat direct op social media. Technologische ontwikkelingen gaan razendsnel. Denk aan smartwatches, smart glasses, 3D-printing en drones die producten bezorgen. 7 jaar geleden bestond de smartphone nog niet. Wat is er over 7 jaar? Giganten als Amazon veroveren de wereld. Ze zijn gigant omdat ze zijn gegroeid. En ze zijn gegroeid omdat ze met hun klant zijn meegegaan toen deze onderweg was. Waar is uw klant? Weg of onderweg? Blijft u staan waar u bent of loopt u mee? Dankzij het onderzoeksprogramma Shopping 2020 weten we waar uw klanten zijn en hebben we een goed idee waar ze heen gaan. Shopping 2020 is een nationaal initiatief. Met de steun van meer dan 100 organisaties is Shopping 2020 goed voor meer dan 460 shopping-experts. De consument zal in 2020 nog meer en nog veelzijdiger digitaal gaan. Online shoppen blijft groeien. De ontmoeting met klanten zal minder in fysieke winkels of webwinkels plaatsvinden. In 2020 zullen bedrijven meer via kleinere schermen en voice met de consument moeten communiceren. Daarnaast kijkt de consument steeds vaker over de grenzen heen. Grote landen eten daardoor marktaandeel van kleinere landen zoals Nederland op. We hebben de veranderingen in kaart gebracht. Nu moeten we samen zorgen dat Nederland en het bedrijfsleven zich voorbereiden op de consument van 2020. Dit vraagt om gezamenlijke actie op nationaal, branche en bedrijfsniveau. Help niet alleen uw eigen bedrijf, maar ook Nederland klaar te maken voor 2020. U loopt voorop mee in de ontwikkeling van de Nederlandse verkoopsector en Nederland als handelsnatie. U loopt mee met uw klant.
I'll repeat it in English. Oh, sorry, I won't. Excuse me for that. Let's get back to the presentation. Okay, where did I put the device? In my left hand. So for the majority of you, this is news, obviously, because you were not aware of the Shopping 2020 study. Who thinks shopping is only buying things in stores? Nobody. So shopping is a term which you can put over anything. You also shop for travel. You shop for leisure experiences. You shop for whatever is in the transaction against your time or your money, or a combination of the two. And that's why it's relevant to take this study into consideration. And I think specifically CELTH is an instrument which can help sustain and build the changes needed for entrepreneurs to move towards a viable position in the future. So let's see ourselves as that. Most important findings. When we imagine the future, we see the present. In my 35 years of experience, innovations, technology, progress, mostly was used to improve effectiveness, cost reduction, do things faster, not to do things differently. But the major impacts from innovations mostly is that things can be done differently with the new technology. So let's make sure that we have a vision on how to change processes, how to change experiences based on the new options technology provides. So not just put a robot instead of the human being and keep the shopping process the same with the shopping basket and something to pick out the goods from the shelf, but shopping will be completely different as a concept. This is what the future consumer will look like. I'm not sure we're all falling in love with this lady, but she's very powerful, and it's a woman. The decision makers in these processes is dominantly women, not only, but that's the thing to be aware of. And that's what they say. I have the power. I know, I determine, I make or break. When KLM launched this Adios Amigos tweet, you see what happens within 24 hours. What's happening is that asked the experts, asked the consumers, that the shift towards electronic buying, electronic orientation, electronic shopping, distance shopping will increase. The experts, the 460 managers from all those companies say, we expect it to grow from 17% to 36%. But the consumers themselves, when asked, say they will move on to 52%. Right? And if you look at the different branches on the right-hand side, airline tickets and accommodation purchase is the number one. And tickets for events, and then insurances, and then packaged trips, tour operator products, are in the top 4. This is what the customer journey will look like, or already looks like. Because the whole discussion about multi-channel, the consumer doesn't think in multi-channel. He is already multi-channel. He's multi-device, he is multi-channel. And he doesn't think 1 second about it. And on the business side, we try to translate it in something which makes us happy and makes it work for the consumer. But the consumer has no concern about multi-channel. Because this is what he does. And to track a customer journey is almost impossible. No one of us has a single view on the customer journey. Maybe Google or Facebook. And then they may have the best part, but not even the complete. If you look at omni-channel from a business perspective, this is what it looks like. This is also for the academics, quite complex, so something to put your teeth in. And this is what it looks like, because it goes about the devices I can work with, it goes the locations where I go to, it goes about the attitude I have. And we must realize that one single human being may have different demands in different circumstances. When I used to work with KLM, we talked about passengers. That's deadly. Because the same Mr. Van Kralingen, when he travels for his company and is entitled to fly business class, is a different type of customer than when he takes his family on a holiday and he wants to go to the east coast of the United States and want to have a very good product for a very reasonable price. But Mr. Van Kralingen is still a highly respected business traveler and should be treated as such when he travels coach, not asking for those privileges and not paying that price. It goes about not the consumer, it goes about the consumer, a physical human being, somebody you can touch, that has a name, that you can talk to, that will talk to you, that will interact with you. Whenever you think about consumers or passengers or guests, think about humans, think about your wife, think about your friends, think about your mom and dad, think about your children, think about your colleagues, think about yourself. What would I like? How would I think about it? Of course, N is 1, but that's not unimportant. If you look what will happen between now and 2020, based on the findings of this study, then we see that in the top 4, where travel was highly represented, the share of distance selling, online buying, will even increase to as much as 80%. When I'm a travel agent, does this scare me? When I'm a tour operator, does this make me happy? When I'm in the leisure business, close to the product, what does this do to me? Who of you are in education? Who have a job in an educational institute? Who of you work for a government body? Who of you are in a commercial company? Okay. The last question, I saw no hands. You should have raised your hand, Roland. You're in a business, you make money, you go for profit, no?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, good. That's nothing. I once was in a discussion at Arendt, at your institution, and we talked about the future of the Leisure Academy, and I spoke the word money. This happened. I was out of the discussion. I had to excuse myself for using the word money. I put the word added value back on the table, and then I was allowed back into the discussion. Money is not a dirty word. We all want to go home with a paycheck at the end of the month. All the entrepreneurs we like to help and serve, they are there to make money, not for the money, but to get continuation in their company, to keep their people at work, to give them an income, to support their families, and the cool experience they want to have. So money is not a dirty word. Back to the travel business, where we are mostly in. And I expanded to leisure and everything that's got to do with experience in a travel, accommodation, travel, stay, and experience, enjoy together. And why are we so in the top 4 of this shopping study? Because internet kicked our butt 15 years ago. And why did that happen? Because we don't distribute physical goods. Yes, we did. We sent confirmations across the mail, and we asked signed confirmations back by fax. We shipped out brochures, catalogs, right? But most companies don't do that anymore, so we are almost out of shipping of physical goods. Products are easily accessible. The internet made everything accessible. The outbound tour operator who used to buy at an inbound tour operator or a DMC now finds the DMC to be his competitor, because you can directly access the content at the DMC as well, and in most cases buy it directly as well. And that upsets the whole chain within our company, and that upsets the whole structure of our academies, because we are training people to be in positions that no longer will exist in the future, even are gone for most of the part. There is not a high entrance level. Anybody can start a travel business, they think. And some are successful at it, and some are not. It's a high interest product. We love to travel. We pay a lot of attention. We spend a lot of time looking for this experience we like to pay money for. It is easy to compare, especially if you have the same hotel, the same airline. What's the difference in the product? Then it's only the price that matters if you boil it down to just the factual things without the emotions. And, very important, a transaction has a high average value, which creates a margin to have an industry and where different partners can share part of the revenue. But it's exactly these margins which are under pressure, which makes it difficult for parties to maintain the same chain of partnerships we used to have in the old industry. So either we have to work for less, or we have to get rid of certain links in this distribution chain, because we can no longer afford to have them. And the technology, of course, helps us to accommodate that. And that's what we see happening in the past 15 years. If you look at what the travel industry has gone through, on the left-hand side, we are almost at the end of the process. We are already in the shakeout and consolidation stage. Or what is no longer there. There's two big companies in the world, Thomas Cook and TUI PLC. And of course, the newcomers who were never burdened with this process of painful regret, confrontation, to go through denial, anger, negotiate, a depression, and then acceptance. They never were burdened by this. The Expedias and the Booking.com of this world, they took the shortcut of the newcomers, and they immediately went to the level of new business as usual. And we all let it happen. We were all there. We were all witnessing it. And nevertheless, the new startups grabbed a very big market share, and the traditional business was unable to come to measures to counter this. Anybody disagree with that statement? No? Thank you. So when we look at retail, Shopping 2020, and that's also a message for CELTH, we are the example for a lot of businesses in retail. They have to go through this process we already have been through. If we are fair and square and we translate our lessons into those arenas, we can be of tremendous value to the change that needs to happen there. Anger. When you read this, it's an uneven playing field. The government should see that this cannot happen. They should maintain the current status. That's anger. It's also feeling pretty desperate. This I took from the newspaper when they were still alive, the block. The shop closed. The fight against change didn't help. Peter Zwart of Cool Blue, I asked him, Peter, have you talked to the people from Block? He said, yes. I said, why didn't you buy them? There was a distributor network. You were moving from pure player to omni-channel. You wanted shops to have a physical presence in the market. Why didn't you buy, even after the dissolvence, the Block stock? He said, we talked, and I came to the conclusion that it would take me too much time, too much effort, and too much money to change this traditional organization into what we want to be as Cool, rather than take it from scratch and build it up myself. What does that mean? That means that our ability, or even stronger, our inability to change, can be our own killing factor. If we don't, look at my previous sheet, try to jump from confusion to acceptance and bypass the human steps of working on the grief you have from this confrontation, and it's impossible to ask, then we have a problem. So something we could do is speed it up. Try and help the industry to get to quicker acceptance, because from acceptance comes the new start. If you get stuck in the other stages, you're still fighting against the change which is inevitably there. Negotiate. Accept. Accept. What you see now is that big stores, department stores, they change their position from being a shop with all the goods for almost everybody into a platform to have shops in shops, where they are more like a real estate entrepreneur like Schiphol Airport is, and the concessionaires run their businesses, and the brands do their own marketing, and not the facility. What's this going to mean? Things are changing, but some things are not changing. The concept about business is still, how do I get traffic? How do I get an audience? How do I get attention? How do I get visitors across my threshold, in my shop, on my website? And at the end, how much did buy something and paid the check? And everything in between is the funnel, and the funnel is fundamentally changing. But the rules of the game remain the same. Which channels do you use? What is the price of the right traffic? Right traffic being the traffic with a high propensity to buy. What is the conversion ratio of that traffic? What's the average transaction amount? How do you make your customers return? And what's at the end the margin that's left to you after you've closed the deal? So one thing you can do, a little bit preempting on data collection, is measure the cost-revenue ratio. How much marketing effort, human beings spending time on marketing and sales efforts, and out-of-pocket expenses do I spend to attract a certain amount of turnover through a specific channel? If you measure that, then you get like a dashboard which says, okay, this line of business brings me more margin than that line of business. And then I have buttons which I can turn to optimize my margin. Not that I'm in full control, I'm in less control than ever. But at least I have choices to make. To do that, first you have to set up a business model. What does my business look like? How do I reach my potential customers? How do I close my transaction? How does my offline effort feed my online effort? And where is the transaction done at the end of the day? Who survives in this new travel business? To my opinion, this is a personal opinion, I think there's only two positions which are sustainable in the end. Either you're very close to the customer or you're very close to the product. Being close to the customer is the big platforms which are able to attract huge amount of visitors who can fulfill almost any need of those visitors. That can be by supplying their own products and services, that can being an aggregator, a retailer, a meta searcher of products of others. Like bol.com is selling a large volume of goods from other retailers that sell through their platform. I was in Barcelona last week on the Global E-commerce Summit. We talked to a Chinese delegation, BECA, that's the Thuiswinkel of China. 5 Europeans, 4 Chinese at the dinner table. And when they talk about this, they say Tmall. Anybody of you ever heard of Tmall? Alibaba? JD? Okay, Alibaba is more familiar. Eh? So in China, if you don't do business through these platforms, forget about reaching any consumer. Because to do a direct business there would cost you so much money that you will never have a conversion on your cost-revenue ratio. So you have to embrace your enemy. When Amazon comes to the Netherlands, make sure, you can be sure that bol.com is scared shitless. They already are. They're watching the door every day. Are they coming in already? If we look at close to the customer, it's also the independent travel counselors who have a position. And why? Because they can build loyalty based on the relationship they build and nurture and maintain. So actually the people who were kicked out of the travel agency because they were too old and too expensive now have the better chance than the young people come from the NHTV who only know the travel companies from school and internet and haven't made those study trips which are too expensive for tour operators to pay for. That's upsetting the whole paradigm. Close to the product, owners who have control over price and availability. TUI has its own aircraft, its own clubs, its own hotels. So nobody can get to that content unless they open it up for retailers. Specialists who can acquire exclusive distribution rights also have a chance, but it's very difficult to acquire exclusive distribution rights. Then you must have an added value which is so valuable to the brand owner or the owner of the product that he sees that he can never match your performance in terms of, okay, if I take 15% margin out of your revenue, he must be sure he can never do it for 50% of his turnover and get the same result. That's a trade-off. 2 buttons to work with, 2 channels. The expectation is from the 2020 study that the generic retailers will grow, so the platforms will grow. They have an enormous marketing power. Who can ever beat Booking.com? Who can beat Booking.com? I know some. Google, Apple, eBay, Amazon, and they will. Because they are the platforms that go to customer intimacy, where they say, okay, what you can find with me, when you trust me, I'll give you the best user experience. And therefore you prefer to shop with me. The same why the hoteliers cannot fight Booking.com. Because the ease of use of Booking.com, the fact that you can book any hotel in the same routine, the same experience, rather than have this booking engine for Interconti, that booking engine for Marriott, that for Hotel De Vrije, don't know what in Nijmegen. So that user experience brings the loyalty of the customer to the platform. They don't buy the loyalty, they acquire the loyalty because they provide ease of use and trust. This is the power of the big scary five, as they are now called. They have all the functionality, they have all the channel, they have all the powers, they gather all the data. Who is now able to challenge these? Well, the Chinese are not in this picture yet. And I'm sure Tmall will be a very strong competitor for Amazon. So what can retailers learn? And consider ourselves as retailers of travel experiences or accommodation experiences. Ultimate focus on the user. If you don't accommodate the needs of that very powerful muscular woman we saw in the beginning, you're not going to have a customer. If your business model doesn't fit a concept which delivers this ultimate experience at a viable margin, you're dead in the water. And the worst thing you can do is study and wait and study and wait and study and wait. Start working, start trying. That brings me to prototyping. Who have you ever heard before of prototyping? Not prototyping, but prototyping. Look it up on Google. You'll find a white paper written by Alberto Savoia. He works for Google. And prototyping is not making a product in a series of one to see if you can produce it. It's testing a concept in the eye of consumers to see if they will adopt it. I made this fictional thing. You know, in Barcelona you see this box standing in the airport, 3 by 3 by 3, an espresso vending machine or a kiosk. If you would have this idea, would you first develop the mechanism inside with all the technology involved, etc., giving you a huge investment cost, and then put it in the airport and see if people use it? The alternative could be you put this box there, you put 2 students of NHTV or HZ or Stenden inside, which give the customer experience like the machine would be inside, and if it's used 1,000 times a day, then you start investing in the machine and then you roll them out. That's prototyping. Can you sell mineral water for animals? Well, you can start up a production line and make a brand and do all the legal and fiscal things. You also can take a bottle of Evian, get off the label, stick on something else, put the crate next to the dog food in the Albert Heijn and see if it gets paid at the cash register. And when it does, then you can start building this factory and building this brand and doing the legal stuff. This is a test about near-field communication, swiping your phone and paying in Leiden. This is how the takeout has been published in infographics. So my message here is, if CELTH can be a partner in prototyping concepts where companies, students and professionals in the academies work together and create a working space in which we can practically learn of today's and tomorrow's reality, then the teachers will get the knowledge up to date, the students will feel they're in today's practice, and the companies will be willing to pay for this exercise, because if they would put it in the hands of a commercial company, they would maybe pay 4 times as much as we need to ask to get our third flow of money into the organization, which is one of the goals of academics, to prove their existence. You can generate third-party money. Final thing, big data, very important topic. I think the next speaker will go deeply into that. Is not equal to insights. But I'll give you the floor, and thank you for listening to my speech.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hedwig. A better swap to the next speaker, I cannot imagine of. So this is great. I will not announce Olivier Petit is talking about understanding the visitors from data to action. And before this presentation, he said to me, I'm not going to talk about it. So let's see what happens.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Well, as Hans mentioned, I decided to change a bit the approach of this presentation. Hans came to me last week and said, Olivier, please tell me something about big data. I said, well, Hans, you know, we actually don't do that much with big data, but we do a lot with data. And actually, I think what would be interesting to present to the audience today is not so much data, but action. Data-driven action. How do we use data in our daily activities? How do we work better because we use data? So this is what we're going to talk about today. And, oh, if this one works. Yes. Just a few words about Amsterdam marketing. I work for this young organization, which started last year. So we are about 1 year old. And we have 3 target groups. First target group is the visitors. Second target group, the inhabitants. And the third target group, the companies. We want to promote Amsterdam as one product. We are into city branding, and this is what we are all about. The Amsterdam, I'm sure you're all familiar with this campaign, which started in 2003. That's our main flag, let's say, and we use it everywhere in everything we do. So we are mainly a marketing activity, trying to attract more and more people to this to the destination. But we are also an organization involved in research. We have a research department, which sounds always very good. I say, well, we have a research department or an R&D department. That's how we were called in the past. But really, when you look at things into more details, you realize that we're a very, very small department. Very concretely, it's 2 people. Well, not 2 people, it's 2 FTEs. So you've got in front of you 50% of this research department. And that means that we have to be very, very organized and focused in what we're doing, because otherwise we're not going anywhere with 2 FTEs. So what are we doing? One of the things people expect from us is to calculate things like the return on investment of our marketing activities. Okay, we're involved into marketing, but what does it generate? What can we expect from it? So we work on that sort of things. We also develop all sorts of tools and platforms in order to monitor tourism activity in our destination. This is an example of one of those tools. It's called the Tourism Barometer. It's an online platform, and basically the idea is that we ask all of our, not all of our partners, but lots of our partners within the destination to say, okay, please share one interesting piece of information with us on a monthly basis. We'll provide you a platform which makes this easy. We'll process all this data, and we will give you the data back so that you can use it. That's the Tourism Barometer, and it works really, really well. One example with the museums. The museums, they actually came to us a few years ago and they said, well, you know, we'd like to be able to benchmark our own data, but we don't really have a platform for that. So at first we started doing it using Excel sheets, you know, really very basic. And then we started working on this tourism barometer. At the moment, any museum in Amsterdam can compare its own results with the other museums. So if you're at the Rijksmuseum and you want to know how the other big guys on the museum plan are doing, you can do that. You can see the impact of the reopening of the Rijksmuseum, for example, if you want to see that, not only on the Rijksmuseum itself, but on the other museums. So you can benchmark, I mean, you can follow the whole sector. You can compare different types of indicators like airports, hotels, cruises, anything. It's so successful that the museums, they have decided that if you wanted to be part of the museum association, you should participate to the tourism barometer. So we've got 100% coverage with this. It's free of charge for all of our partners. It's just one way to help the sector and to help build knowledge. I think with this tool, it's a good example of what you can do when you bet on collective intelligence. That you think, okay, if everybody has one piece of information which is very valuable but does not share it, does not do anything with it, then it's useless. But as soon as you provide the technical means for people to put this all together, you get data, and you get data that you can use. I use an image which is the one of the slot machine of happiness. You know what a slot machine is? It's a game machine, basically. But with this one, you win all the time. You just need to invest a little bit of your time, filling in one figure per month into the system, and then you get a lot back. That's the idea, and this is why it works. It works because people, the industry, sees the point of developing that type of tool. So that's one of the things we're doing. And we also do a lot of quantitative research, like visitor surveys and that sort of things, because the industry expects us to be able to tell them, for example, what the new markets, so the so-called BRIC countries or the MIST countries or whatever country are doing, who they are, how they behave, how much they spend, how they book, when they book, etc., etc. So regularly we organize huge visitor surveys, not only in Amsterdam, but in the whole Amsterdam metropolitan area, because that's our area. We're not only working for Amsterdam, but for the whole Amsterdam metropolitan area. And we go all year long, interview people in the street, in museums, attractions, on the airport, wherever. Last time we did that, we interviewed more than 10,000 people. Those interviews, they last around 15 minutes. So that's really a lot of data. And given that we've been doing that for, I don't know, something like 15, 20 years, we are able to see trends, to see really how the markets are developing. So that's another of the things we're doing. And it's not only, well, we're absolutely convinced that it's not only good to know how your destination is doing, what's happening in your destination, but it's even better when you're able to benchmark your results with the results of competing destinations. So I'm not saying that we're spying on the other destinations, but we're doing a lot of benchmarking. We do a lot of things together on the meeting segments, for example, when we try to analyze trends on the meeting sector, corporate meetings, international non-corporate meetings, etc., etc. We do that also in general to see, okay, let's take the Russian market, for example. Who's winning? Who's losing on the Russian market? Maybe you're having a growth of plus 5% in Amsterdam and you think, yes, we did it, fantastic, and then you see the results of the other cities and you realize that on average the market has grown by 20%. And then maybe you're not doing that well. So that's why for us it's absolutely crucial to be able to put our own results in perspective with the results of competing destinations. The challenge. Well, our challenges are pretty much the same as yours. We have to deal with a lot of diversity in terms of profiles of visitors in our cities. Maybe they come for business, maybe they come for leisure, all sorts of nationalities, etc. That makes it really tricky to collect the data, if only for being able to address them in the right language. That makes it really tricky to collect the data. And a business visitor, maybe he has absolutely no time to give you any piece of information concerning his stay or his profile. So how do you deal with that? They have very little time, I just mentioned that. Congress visitors, for example, they usually have a really, really busy agenda, very difficult to get access to them. But think of the Chinese, for example, and their tour guide. Well, how do you get in touch with a Chinese visitor, even if you speak the language? How do you get data? They don't have the time. They are moving all the time, so as soon as you start counting things, maybe you will count some people twice or 3 times, maybe you will not see some people at all on your radar. They're not necessarily in contact with us, Amsterdam Marketing, so maybe, again, we don't have those people on the radar at all. And when you try to analyze the efficiency of what you're doing, you also have to take into account the fact that our sector is very much influenced by what's going on the world scale. Maybe you have a fantastic marketing campaign and a war happens somewhere, and all of a sudden, well, this impacts your results. How do you measure the impact of your campaign in this situation? Maybe you've got a financial crisis, and all of a sudden the Americans or the English, they stop coming. And what do you do? You know, with your campaigns, how do you measure the efficiency of those campaigns? Very tricky. And even trickier, yes, we're a city branding organization. Yes, we've got a fantastic product, Amsterdam. But the product has a life of its own. We cannot control anything. We try to package it to make it really sexy and attractive, but in the end, there's not that much we can do about it. But still, we can do a lot. And we can do a lot if we focus on the things which are close to us. So that was the whole idea. Of our department. We started by the things which were the closest to us. And it turns out that Amsterdam Marketing is in contact with visitors before, during, and more often after the stay. Before the stay, that's, for example, when people will visit our website. They haven't come to Amsterdam yet, but still they're looking for information. That's one contact moment. They can be in contact with us if they send us an email saying, well, you know, could you give me some information about this or that? They can call us also. We've got a call center. So those 3 moments, those 3 platforms, they are moments where we can collect information. They are contact points. And all of our contact points we try to use to collect data. I'll tell you more about this in a second. During the stay, it can be when people arrive with their plane, they're at the airport, and they decide to visit the Holland Tourist Information Center, which is run by Amsterdam Marketing. And there we will have all year long people with iPads collecting data about our visitors, their profile, their experience in the tourist office. We do exactly the same in front of Central Station. We do the same everywhere we are, just collecting data about the experience with us and about the profile of people. If they don't come to us, then maybe we go to them. And that's the idea of those visitor surveys taking place on a regular basis. And maybe we collect some data without them knowing that they give us some data. That's my next point. And the panel, keeping the contact with people after the stay, that's something we're working on at the moment. It works already, but we still have to face very, very serious challenges. More about this at the end of this presentation. But first, collecting data about people without them knowing it. That's the example of the Amsterdam card. Are you familiar with that product? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, not everybody, but pretty much everybody, so I'll keep it simple. The card gives you access to museums, attractions, and all sorts of other exciting stuff in Amsterdam and the Amsterdam metropolitan area. With the card, you can, for example, get a free broodje croquette at the famous Van Doben restaurant, or you can get a glass of Genever in a traditional brown cafe, that sort of things. So it's a very nice product, and on top of that, you've got public transportation. That's the product. So you buy the product for a given period. Maybe it's 24 hours, maybe it's 48 or 72 hours. Each time you use your card, you put it in a reader, and some basic data is collected. Very basic, very simple, looks like that. So we collect things like, we collect things like the time of the transaction, the card number, if it's an activation or if the card has been reused, and the type of card. Is it 24 hours or whatever? So really, really very basic. But given that we sell about 130,000 cards per year, that's just a lot of data. And when you are just two people dealing with a lot of other things, well, it's a little bit tricky to dig into this gold mine of information, even though you know it's a gold mine. So it took us a few years before we decided to do it. And we took our courage with both hands and we started digging. And we invested also into some special data mining tools and statistical tools so that we could do this more efficiently. And the results were absolutely fantastic, because it made it really clear who the blockbusters were in the city, how it all works, who the big players were and who the smaller players were, and how much bargaining margin we had with all of those locations. Because of course, each time the card is used in a location, we need to give some money to the location, but the percentage will not be exactly the same depending on the type of location. And you also need, when you keep developing the card, which is what we're doing, including new partners, having better deals, etc., you need to keep the profitability of your product in mind. Because if all of a sudden your customers, they will start using their cards more intensively than in the past, it means that you will have to give more money away, and maybe you actually lose money with the product. So we need to be very careful in our calculations to make this product profitable. And that's where the data is important. I put all data in there because it's sort of sensitive data, but that gives a pretty good idea of what you can do with it. We could analyze the seasonality really in details, when the card is used, when it is purchased, and we could thus, based on this data, fine-tune our marketing strategies, when we would communicate on the card, for example, when we will have special deals, etc. We could also analyze at the level of in that case a museum, that's the Van Gogh Museum, when the card is used. So we could see the seasonality pattern at the level of the destination. And we see here, for example, with the Van Gogh Museum, a very clear fact, and that is that there is no point queuing in front of the Van Gogh Museum early in the morning, because that's when everybody goes, including the big groups. So maybe it's much better to go to the Van Gogh Museum at the end of the day, you know. Then it's really it's very cozy in the Van Gogh Museum at the end of the day. So that's one way to improve the visitor's experience also when you start communicating on this and say, you know, Van Gogh Museum, it's better to go at the end of the day. And with some other museums, we see, for example, that the lunch time is really the best time to visit the museum. That's how, based on data, you can communicate and make people have a better experience in the museum and have the museum also better cope with its own visitors. Other example, we go one level deeper into the data. We started calculating all the correlations between the different participants of the card. And we saw, for example, that people visiting the Bag and Purse Museum, Tassen Museum, they would also be very likely to go to the Foam Museum, which is a contemporary photography museum, and also Museum van Loon, which is an old patrician house. So when you think about this, you think, where is the theme, you know? How it comes that those people, they combine this. And then when you start mapping the data, you realize that this is all in the same part of the city. So in fact, people are not just walking around following a theme, but they will just be somewhere and think, okay, what can I do with my card in the area? How can I make the most of my card? So that's what we call the geographic cluster effect, spatial cluster effect. And then you can also see, depending on what people do with the card, you can already have an idea of the profile of those people. So, for example, people who go to Nemo, they also are very likely to have a Geneva at the Drie Flesjes and eat a croquette sandwich in Van Doben. So when you combine that with other data, you think, okay, that's most probably a family profile, entertainment. They're here for the fun, having a good time, not so much interested in culture, but interested in having a good time. So all of a sudden, based on hard data, your visitor or your customer is starting to have a face. You start to understand him better. And themes. Yes, of course, it works also by theme. So you will realize that people who are very interested in the Golden Age period, they will be more likely to visit some places, and people who are interested into modern art, they will see other places. They will go to the Cobra or to the Stedelijk Museum or Foam or other places. So the point is that based on all these data, we started adapting the product. And I broke my props. I thought for a presentation it's always good when you've got some props. So this is what we had in 2012. And that was with all sorts of things, and that was already a big improvement compared with previous years, where it looked more like a book more than a booklet that you would carry around. It was organized according to our own logic, that you would have all the museums at the beginning and all the attractions and etc., etc. But taking this into account, we started changing a bit the book and adding some more geographical dimensions and adding some maps and things, until really it came to us that we were still thinking with new data, but the old way. And in fact, it was much, much, much better to make a map, you know, because if people are somewhere and they want to see where they are and what they can do in the area and follow some theme, so it's also organized by theme, then they will be happy. And yes, they are extremely happy, and we are very happy too, because, oh sorry, I'm invading your space. We're very happy too, because this costs much less to produce, and we also sell much more. So everybody's happy. And of course the next step, and actually we are already working on it, and we already have prototypes and things, is to go fully online with apps and things like that, where we will collect even more data. So a very practical example. I'm not afraid of saying that we are making some money with this based on the data. And I think we should do it much more with more things. I see time is running. A few examples with what we can do with the data. This is based on the quantitative data from the Amsterdam Visitor Survey. We monitor things like culture. You know, Amsterdam as a cultural destination, and not only the drug, sex, and rock and roll destination. Is it working? Or our communication on museums and things? Yes, we see that one visitor survey after the other, the percentage of people saying that they are here for museums or for culture is increasing. So museums, you see it here, 50% of people say, yes, I come to Amsterdam because of the museums, and 66% for the culture. And the coffee shops, that's 16%, 16.5%. So you see how the balance is changing. Another example, how you can use the data to make decisions or better informed decisions. A few years ago, you may remember the whole discussion about the Witpass. So restricting access to coffee shops to international visitors. Well, the mayor of Amsterdam, he wanted to know how much it would cost the city if we started implementing the Witpass. What kind of data are you going to use? Well, it turns out we've got plenty of data about expenditures of visitors, etc. And we've got plenty of data about the people who come to Amsterdam because of the coffee shops only, or because of museums, etc. and coffee shops, or people who do not come because of the coffee shop, but still go to the coffee shop during their stay. So based on that, we could work on different scenarios and go back to the mayor and say, look, this is what we think this would cost, scenario 1, A, B, and C. So very practical way, again, to use the data. In terms of marketing activities, we analyze the region of origin of our visitors. We can be more efficient in the way we market the destination. We can analyze in more details the way the different markets think. So this is, I think, an interesting example with the BRIC countries. We ask them if they come to Amsterdam only, or if they will visit other destinations in Europe during their stay. And what do we see? We see that the Russians, I'm still looking for the pointer, Hans. I don't know where it is, but so you have to trust me on this. Where is Russia? Russia is the second on top. 79% of the Russians, they come just for Amsterdam. So really, we should promote Amsterdam and Amsterdam only on the Russian market. But if you look at the Brazilians, for example, well, most of them, 69%, they come to Amsterdam as part of a European trip. So maybe for this market, it could make sense to work together with other European destinations to promote Europe and Amsterdam in Europe. So, you know, it doesn't mean that you will do it, but you know that it would make sense based on the data. Next. We also analyze the way people move around, not only in Amsterdam or the Amsterdam metropolitan area, but in the whole region. So that's also very, very useful for developing products and trying to boost visitor flows within the city. One example of how data can be very, very beneficial for your destination. 2008, we had this big financial crisis, and the figures, they look really, really bad. The number of visitors was plummeting everywhere. All key nationalities were down, and we had some sort of crisis meeting with the vice mayor in charge of economic affairs. And he said, well, and how is it going? Well, it wasn't going that well, so we presented the data and said, well, you know, here are, again, 3 different scenarios, and all of those scenarios, they look like doomed scenarios. this is how many jobs we're going to lose if we don't do anything. Oh, Vice Mayor was not really amused. And then we also said, but look, there is a chance. Look at those markets. They seem to be more resilient. They have this and that profile. I think if we would make, we think, it was Amsterdam Tourism and Convention Board at the time, we think if we would approach those markets, those specific markets, this way, maybe it would work and we would inverse the trend. And the Vice Mayor said, yes, let's go. And the industry said, yes, we do it. So there was a special crisis campaign, and it was extremely successful. So in the end, Amsterdam was the first city in Europe to get out of the crisis. So we ended up the year with a plus, while all the other European cities, they were still deeply struggling. That's how useful data can be. A few more words and then I wrap it up. Hans, I see you walking around and chasing me off the stage, but when I'm there it's difficult to get me out. Meetings. I'm aware most of you cannot read this slide, but just imagine this. The big square in the middle, the big red square, it's the number of meetings, of corporate meetings taking place in the city. And the small gray square is the number of non-corporate meetings taking place in the city. Think the association of the cardiologist or a thrombosis specialist or whatever. It's really a small number of meetings compared to the corporate meetings. But when you look at the participants that they attract to the city, really they generate more than half of all the meetings participants coming to Amsterdam. So what does it mean for us? It means that we need to be really focused in our approach when trying to attract meetings to the destination. We should just go for those meetings which will deliver the most visitors to the destination. And that works. Again, on the long term, just look at the ties of those guys. The ties is the number of participants days generated. So it's the number of participants times the duration of their meeting. So it's the best economic indicator we can find for the meeting sector. And you see that the tie is getting longer and longer and longer. So we had to change actually this infographic. So this year it's a totally different one with the 2013 results, because otherwise it would look ridiculous. The number of meetings, of participant days, has grown by 60% since 2008. And since yesterday we have the results for 2013, and it has doubled. So the reason why it has doubled is because the big meetings, so the bottom part of the tie, have been increasing the most. And that's where we've been active, attracting those big meetings to the city, generating lots and lots of visitors. I will skip that one, but the idea is that we can go very much in details at the level of each hotspot of the destination, and we also use all the information generated by request that my colleagues from the Convention Board get. Each time we get a request, in the past we just didn't keep track of this. Right now, each time we get a request, we process it and we put it in a database so that we can use it to work better. So, conclusions. Where are we going with our Amsterdam marketing party boat in terms of research? We'll just use the systems we have in place, but with other target groups. So this has already started. We use the same tools and techniques as we have to analyze the developments of the inhabitants, and in the future I hope we'll do much more with companies. So we really think in terms of system. I repeat, we're a very small team, so you can't disperse yourself and do all sorts of things which are just one-offs. We focus on making big steps, and we go one level higher all the time. Everything we put in place, it stays. And going one level deeper, that's, for example, developing dashboards for visitors, not for visitors, but for colleagues of partner organizations, etc., so that the right person gets the right piece of information at the right time, not for fun, but to take action, to use the data. I am not taking action based on this data. I'm just providing the right piece of information to the right people so that they can improve the experience of visitors on our website, for example, or the experience of visitors in the tourist information center. And the panel, I had promised I would say a word about the panel. It's great to have all those contacts with people and collecting data before and during the stay, but it's even better if you can make this relationship last longer. And that's why we thought of developing a panel for visitors and also for inhabitants. So now each time we collect data from someone, we also ask at the end of the interview, for example, well, and would you like to participate to more research activities of Amsterdam marketing? And to my great surprise, there's plenty of people saying, oh yes, yeah, I'd like that. So then we invite them to join the panel, and if we've got some specific questions for specific target groups, we ask them. So last year, the Rijksmuseum wanted to know if the reopening, communication around the reopening of the museum had generated more decisions to visit Amsterdam now. So we looked at all the people who visited the Rijksmuseum after it had reopened and asked them if the reopening had played a role in their decision to visit. That's a very specific example. But let's say we would like to analyze the reaction to a specific campaign, or to know how young ladies react to a new shopping offer. We could do that too. So I think this gives you a pretty good overview of what we're doing with data, so data-driven action, and I thank you very much for your attention. You're welcome.
Ja, dank je. Die werkt.
Rechtsaf,
Ja.
linksaf, ja.
Ja, dankjewel. I think that I found this presentation extremely interesting, especially when you talk about existing markets and how you can improve your performance. I'm going to talk about new markets, and I'll take you back a little more than 10 years ago when I started a company called the Marketing Fund, where we buy companies that operate in new markets, that could be startups of early stage companies. And we help them to be successful in these new markets. And if I overlook a period of 10 years and you ask me, what is your success rate? And if I be totally honest with you, our success rate is around 20%. Which means, let me be more nuancé, it's 20% that will be successful, and it's about 10% which is, well, we're not sure yet. The other percentage, in other words 70%, will be a failure. A total failure. So if you ask me to talk about new markets, I wonder whether I'm the best guy to talk about it, because I have a failure rate of 70%. Luckily, 20% makes up more than sufficiently for the 70%. So it's a numbers game. In other words, the chance that you understand what a new market would bring the chance that you can make the right choices in investing in companies is really pretty small. So because of that experience, I decided to write a book about it. And I'm going to talk about that book. Because in this book, we really explain what new markets actually are. And what the focus of most of us is when we talk about innovation, when we talk about new product development. But let me first ask you, what is the major challenge for any company or any management or any chief executive officer? What should he do? Where should his focus be totally? Don't worry, I mean, any answer today is all right. So tell me what you believe that the major job of a top manager or an entrepreneur should be. Focus on the market, yes. Innovation and change, that's, sorry?
Inspiring people.
Inspiring people. Very good. Listening and looking. You're all very close. But I would like to make it more simple. The only thing, or the major thing I have to say, that your focus should be is on one simple thing. And that is creating new turnover and growing existing turnover by creating added value. I mean, your main focus is my current added value sufficient, and can I create new added value? Because if you don't add value, you have a commodity. And if you have a commodity, you have a problem. So what the end responsibility of any chief executive officer or a manager of a large company or a small company is his ability to create and innovate added value. It's as simple as that. What is added value? You see here, I mean, it speaks for itself. It's at a university, and I think there is only one student that does not have an apple, or maybe this Apple light thing is broken, I'm not sure. This is what I call added value. Or, let me give you another example. It's in a famous book of an innovation guru called Peters, and he describes a taxi drive from the airport LaGuardia to the center of New York. And it's in Dutch, but I will translate it. The taxi driver gives me his business card and says, good day, my name is Walter, I'm your driver. I'll bring you safe at time and on a pleasant way to your destination. A taxi driver that really formulates his own job, that's a new thing to me. Then he shows me the New York Times and the USA Today and asks me, would you like to read them? So I take them from them. And we're not yet even driven away, and he offers me a small bucket with all kinds of fruit. And then he asked me, what do you like to prefer, hard rock or classic? I have 40 channels of music. And the rumor goes that this taxi driver gets around $80,000 on tips every year. This is what I call added value. And by the way, if there's one group of people in our country that do not understand this, you know, the interesting thing is, why have the Dutch such a problem to deliver service? Because we have. Why is that? Well, the answer lies in a basically very simple thing, which is what is the most important value in our country? That's the value of equality. Every Dutch thinks that he is equal to any other Dutch. And that never ever he would bow and deliver service. Because we're equal. And that makes it very difficult in this country to be service-minded. We have to learn that in the next future. So anyway, talking about added value. Added value is really giving something a meaning. And that could be a functional meaning or an emotional meaning. Google is an example of something that offers a very functional meaning. While Harley-Davidson offers added value, and the added value is pure emotion. So the next question is how to create added value or innovate your added value. And that brings me on a subject which is called insights. You probably know what I'm going to talk about. If you want to add value, you have to look for new insights. Great companies are built on great insights, says Larry Ellison. So then the next question, what is an insight? What is the shortest way from A to B? Around the box. Is that so? You know, that's something we all do. We stick to conventions. Because you don't walk through a doolhof. I don't know the English for doolhof. You go around it. So you stick to a convention. And if you want to break the rules, if you want to find new markets, if you want to innovate, don't stick to the conventions. I'm going to talk more about conventions a little later. So, an insight. This is an insight. You know who this is? Tell the story. Yeah, instead of going forward, he went backwards. And he became Olympic champion. So that is an insight. This guy had a new insight. This is also a new insight. So, what is the insight behind the tremendous success of Nespresso? Why, if you think about one simple question, why is espresso so successful? What is their added value? What did they bring new to the market, to the consumer markets? Good coffee? Cheaper? I don't think so. Yeah, you're getting close. Sorry? Yeah, all the answers are right, but is that really the essence of the success of an espresso? Fine.
You're talking about espresso in general or Nespresso?
Nespresso. Part of it, absolutely. But the real reason is that they created a totally new market. They made it possible for all of us to make a good cup of coffee, personalized, at home. That did not exist. That was their insight. To bring espresso to the homes of people. And yeah, they did a lot of things very well. I mean, the design is beautiful, their distribution system is very smart, they had the right marketing, absolutely. But in essence, their product was a totally new market. What is the essence of the success of Madonna? Why is she so successful already for 25 years? What was her insight? She reinvents her own music, she reinvents herself every time. But what is herself? What did she bring to the market? What was totally new 25 years ago? Sorry? Showing her underwear, you mean? Yeah, yeah. But that was an expression of something. Well, it's again, if I give the answer, you will say yes, of course. 25 years ago, her message to all the women in the world was what I call girl power. She basically was saying and singing, look, women all over the world, we're just as smart, just as powerful, just as good as men are. And that was 25 years ago a new message. Every 3 years she changed her identity, but her message basically stayed the same. So what is the insight behind the success of Henne and Maurits? That's an easy one. Why is this company and this brand so successful? Affordable clothing, absolutely. It's fashion for peanuts. That was totally new. It's not quality, it's fashion, high fashion, and an extremely low price. So, and what is the insight behind this company? By the way, this is a company that has a turnover of more than $1 billion US and has a margin of 40%. So it's a very successful company. What was their insight? Sorry? We like to be surprised, yes. That's the right answer, but it's not the answer I'm looking for. No animals. But what did they offer? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Circus is meant for, a normal circus is meant for children. This is meant for grown-ups. So it's circus for grown-ups. That's totally new. And the circus for grown-ups, yes, means more culture. Yes, means no animals, etc., etc., etc. But the basic thought was we're going to build a circus for grown-ups, not for children. So you see behind all those very successful brands or companies, there is basically a very simple insight. Are there any laws in creating and innovating added value? Are there any laws in creating new markets? Yes, there are. The first question is, added value creation has a strong influence on the behavior of consumers, or has just a little bit of influence. And the second is, added value creation has a strong influence on the behavior of the producers, or has a very little impact on that. So if you combine those, you get this. Radical new markets, big new markets, smart new markets, and strategic new markets. And every market, every product, wherever in the world, always fits in one of those four. So it's really trying to understand what that means. The radical innovation, it changes the behavior of consumers in a strong way, and it also changes the behavior of the producers in a strong way. It destroys existing markets, and it creates totally new markets. Let me give you some examples. Television changed our behavior in a dramatic way. The smartphone, the airplane, the computer, obviously, Facebook, social media, search engines, the car. And there are many more examples. These totally new markets are destroying existing markets. Let me give you one example. The airplane destroyed the what I would say call the boat line transportation, which was always that disappeared. It's all cruises nowadays. So radical innovation destroy existing markets, create totally new markets. I mean, before the car was introduced, we all use horses to drive from A to B. We're not using horses anymore. So if you were raising horses, you had immediately when this car appeared, you had a problem. So what it learns, one of the things that it learns is that it's not all about creating totally new products to be the first one, but to design or to create the best design. You know, was Windows the first to come with his software? No. It was MS-DOS, and then shortly after that, IBM came. And it was the third company called Microsoft that introduced a superior product and conquered all the world, all the markets in the world. So you don't have to be the first, you simply have to have the best design. Was this iPod the first? Or do we had, how do you call this little MP3 players? So this is really basically an improved MP3 player. So they were not the first, but they had the best design. So, and now I'm going to move from the radical markets to the big innovations. And the big innovations means that within a market you create a new segment. Because markets always divide. There's no exception. They always split up in segments. So it started with the mainframe, and then you had the mini computer, the personal computer, the game computer, the workstation, laptop, handheld, the tablet PC. They are all new segments within the market of computers. And every market always split up. And if we talk about innovation, the real challenge and the real basis for big, successful operations is to create a new segment. Let me give you some more examples. This is an example of the ice market, with Ben & Jerry's and Haagen-Dazs as one of the recent players in this market that created a totally new segment. Or MTV, 15 years ago, created a totally new segment. And what we will see, this is a suit supply. I mean, their promise is a non-confection, a tailor-made costume at a very low price. In about 10 or 15 years, 80% of all men will have these type of suits. They are the first to come. Within 15 years, they will be the largest in this new market segment. Gatorade, energy drink for sports people. Quickly take you to some other examples. When you look at the television market, we have Animal Planet as a segment, Discovery, other segment, CNN, other segment, etc. So the essence of innovation is trying to find a new market segment. And based on my experience, I can tell you that 80%, around 80% of education, of marketing focus, of innovation focus, is not on creating new segment, but is on creating what I call incremental innovations. Small innovation. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So creating a new category is really building a business. And I give you one example in your own market. Almost 100 years ago, Hilton appeared. It today has more than 600,000 rooms in 88 countries. And Airbnb, 4 years ago, is beating Hilton. It's a totally new segment. And you can say, yeah, but you cannot compare them. Well, the consumer does. So here you see an example of this is going to be, and already is, a big, successful new market segment. So innovation becomes more and more a battle of categories. It's Airbnb against Hilton. I mean, what is the biggest competitor of Coca-Cola? Is that Pepsi-Cola? Or maybe Evian? I think Evian. So what you see today is not a battle. Yeah, you also see a battle within a market. So it's a battle between Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. But also a battle from Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola against Evian. And you name them. So today's business is really a business where you compete with other categories. So once you have created a new market segment, then you come into the area of marketing. Because if there is a new segment, you can count on the fact that new competitors will add into a successful new segment immediately. So here you get a battle on market share. Basically a marketing battle. Small innovations. Like McDonald's with McDonald's Ski. Is it new? Is it interesting? Yes. Is it a new segment? No. It's just a small, smart innovation. Or Hansaplast that introduced, how do you call this in English? A plaster? No. Band-Aid. Within the Band-Aid there is a chip that measures the temperature of the wound. Is this a new segment? No. Is it a smart innovation? Yes. Decathlon developed this thing, and you throw it in the air and it stands within 20 seconds. So that's a nice innovation. It takes, by the way, an hour and a half to get it together again, but the Paco of Heineken, smart innovation, works very well. The new design of the Evian bottle, more usable if you have a nice dinner, small innovation. Using Karl Lagerfeld and other famous people to stress the power of your fashion brand is a smart innovation, but no more than that. And I don't know what your experience is, but my experience is, as I said before, that most of our talent, most of our education, most of our spendings, most of our competitive behavior is focused on this. And my main message to everybody that I confront with this presentation is try to change your strategy. Try to change your thinking. Try to spend more of your talent, more of your energy in really finding new segments. And I'm going to talk within a minute, how do you do that? Instead of going the marketing route. Although I'm a marketing guy, I still think that we spend too much energy, too much talent when we talk about new markets on marketing. So the last segment is new rules. And new rules is basically, I'm not going to change the market, I'm not going to replace the market. It has nothing to do with smart innovations. It has to do with changing my business model. That's no more than that. And changing my business model is saying, look, a newspaper you have to pay for it. And the first one said, no, you don't have to pay. I give it for free. It's changing the business model. It's still a newspaper. Or EasyJet. It's still transporting people by an airplane, but on a totally new business model. So, if we add that up, you see that the two upper parts are basically driven by technology and by new business insights, I would say. And the other two are basically driven by marketing and sometimes by brands. So is there a process that can stimulate finding new insights? Yes, there is. What I believe is that you have to build a connected enterprise. You have to look at your own company as a radar station. And I'm talking about creating new markets as a radar station. You have to build your company in such a way that it is connected to markets, and not only to markets. I'm going to show some other things that I believe you should be connected with. That should be connected simply because if you connect, you get new insights. So if you really try to understand what's going on in your context, the benefit of that, the bonus of that, will always be new insights. So being better connected means having superior information, getting better insights, and better insights lead to better products or better ideas. You have given us a number of perfect examples. And if you talk about where should I focus if I want to be connected, I tell you, if you want to go to the radical innovation, which I believe none of us, including myself, are able to create, because otherwise you would not have sitting here, that's really for the big entrepreneurs. So forget about that market. Let's focus on this. You really have to understand the context in which you operate and the market changes. How do you do that? Seeing what's happening before it happens. And I'm going to work out, because I only have 10 more minutes, I'm only going to talk about consumer behavior. But basically what your company has to be connected with is the consumer, of course the market, but also business trends, society trends, and last but not least, emerging technologies. In other words, you have to build a radar station that connects you with those 5 areas. But I'm going to focus on the connectivity that you design to understand today's consumer. And there are many ways to do that. I'm not going to talk about all the tricks you can play, all the tools you can use. I'm going to just give a few examples. Who of you reads Fast Company? So I have 2 people in this room that read Fast Company. Who of you reads Wired? I can ask and give some other examples, but those 2, if you are in a business that has to deal with markets, and if you don't read Wired, and if you don't read the Fast Company, you're not connected. And in my book, I give a number of examples of magazines that you have to read. Why do you have to read these magazines? Because those top magazines are always between 12 to 18 months ahead of things that are coming. Do you agree with me? So if you want to understand what's going on in your market and what's going on in your context, you have to do your homework. And I tell you, it inspires you quite a lot. Who of you makes an annual hot product scan? So what the hell is a hot product scan? You hire some students, you say to them, take place behind the computer and find me all the new products in my market over the last 12 months. In China, in the United States, in Chile, whatever, over the whole world. And you end up with a number of new products that is unthinkable. Really, I mean, 70–80% you can throw away immediately. But it's about that 10 or 20% that will bring you new ideas, that will connect you with what is going on. Of course, I mean, if I would ask any one of you, what are the 3 or maybe 5 major trends in your market? You should be able to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are you able to do that? Do you know them? Just giving you some examples. Gamification, social gifting, hot. Bring your own device, hot. Who of you drinks every 6 months a cup of coffee or a glass of white wine or lunch with the chief editor of the magazine that is published in your market? Good. You know, if you invite a chief editor for lunch and you offer him 2 glasses of white wine, he throws up all the information that he has in his head. And that could be very valuable information, I tell you. So if you want to understand what's going on in your own market, it's a simple trick. Finally, breaking the rules. I mean, and I have many more examples of tools that you can use to be connected. What are the conventions in your market? Because you have to break the rules. This company, this brand broke the rules. Fresh, handmade cosmetics? That's strange. So you buy soap and they cut it with a big knife and they wrap it up in beautiful paper and you pay a fortune for it. That's breaking the rules. Hotels should have a hobby and a bar, a lobby and a bar. No, said Formula One. It's not necessary. It's breaking the rules. Today we're putting romance into a computer. Isn't that strange? He did it. And he changed the world. So, if I have a workshop about innovation, I start by asking 3 questions. What are the 3 major conventions in your market? Please, management team, tell me what are the 3 major conventions in your market. And they will have a fight for hours because they don't know. What are the 3 beliefs in your company as the base for success now and in the future? Same battle. What are the 3 major changes in the context in which your company operates that will have a major impact in the near future? I go now, because Hans is already looking at. So, trying to find new insights is being connected, and on the one hand, and trying to think out of the box, breaking the conventions on the other hand. I'll end up with, we work together with a French company that has a wonderful concept. And that is that they are measuring, they're only measuring successful products, services. From food, to movies, to books, to operas, to you name it. And the idea behind it, if you look at successful companies, or successful brands, or successful products, is there something that you can learn from it? Are there certain what I would call laws or rules for today's success. And they came up with 9 drivers, lifestyle drivers. People are more than ever looking for self-esteem. Quality of life, being desirable, out one, living young. That's a major aspiration of everybody. Not only of the old people, but also of the young people who refuse to become older. Creative lifestyle, living the extremes, living the paradox, merging with nature, and trying to create a meaningful life. These are today's 10 major aspirations of people, by the way, all over the world. That is to say, Europe and the United States. If you would look at Asia, it looks a little bit different. I worked out one to give you an example, and Hans, if in any other occasions you want me to do a presentation on this, I'm ready to do that. Yeah. So the only one that I'll show you is living the paradox. Swatch is a paradox. It's high fashion, it's high quality, and it has a low price. Hema is also a paradox. It's very designy, beautiful, it's top quality, and it has a low price. You know, the major successful brands nowadays quite often are paradoxes. Like this one, we talked about it. So I'm going to end, if you allow me, with a small anecdote. That has to do with the mentality of being able to change the rules or being able to break conventions. You know who this is? This is Larry Ellison. This is the founder of a company called Oracle. And I'll take you back a few years to the Harvard Business University, where at the end of the year, 400 students gathered in the aula of the Harvard Business School, because that was the day that they would receive their bill, their diploma. And if you have finished the Harvard Business School and you're, let's say, 22, 23, 24 years old, there is one thing that you don't lack, and that is self-esteem. You're standing there and you believe that you're going to conquer the world. And Harvard has a good habit, and that is that they always invite a well-known American to deliver a short speech at that occasion. And this time it was Larry Ellison, and Larry Ellison in the United States is known as the man that really is very strongly opinionated about almost everything. And he walks in, takes place and says, you know, who is the richest man in the United States? That's Bill Gates. And you know who's the second richest man in the United States? It's me, Larry Ellison. And the third richest man in the United States is Andy Grove from Intel. And the fourth is Bezos from Amazon. And do you know what the four of us have in common? We are all Harvard dropouts. None of us finished Harvard. And you did. So that learns me something about you. That learns me that you have been able to sleazeball with your professors for 5 years. And that you have been able to cope with this very suppressing system called the Harvard Business School. Oh yes, you will have a nice job. You will have a nice wife, a nice house, nice kids, and a nice dog. No doubt about that. But if any one of you comes ever close to my company, I'll shoot you. Because I'm not looking for people that can cope with the rules. I'm looking for people that change the rules. And he leaves after his speech. 400 people totally confused. 5 years for nothing. And then he comes back and said, well, I have to be honest with you. Maybe the reason that I'm only the second richest man in the United States is that years later, Bill Gates went back to Harvard and finished it. Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure.
A better link in what we have to do is hardly possible. Thank you all three for confronting us with what's going on in the industry and that we have to rethink. I saw very few hands-on when you posed a question, when you all posed a question. I saw few hands-on. Maybe you're shy, I doubt. But I think that we have work to do. And there are different worlds. We realize that, and one of the challenges for CELTH is to bring those worlds together. We have a partner. You mentioned top magazines. We only have one top magazine, and we embrace them as being our partner, which is Argus Sports Media, and the editor of several magazines in our field of work. And they are now partnering communications of CELTH. Tom is here. And we'll work out several communication items towards the industry to bring those both together. And we are very happy to have you on board. Thank you very much for that. Stay connected. That's also something we have to do. And definitely we will keep to try to track points where we can stay connected with the market in different ways. And that's one of the things we're going to discuss this afternoon as well. But before we do that, we still have 10 minutes to pose some questions to the keynote speakers. If you want, this is your chance, because they will be gone after lunch in some cases, not all of them, but some. So this is your chance if you have any questions. Are there questions? You're totally flabbergasted. Or you're still shy. Anyhow, in that case, I'd like to thank you and give you over in the hands of Diana, who will inform you about the afternoon program. And before we go to lunch and go in different directions, those are 4 very interesting topics, and we want to share you with those topics. But first we say thank you to the, and we have something for you. We were very pleased that you were willing to do this voluntarily without charging us, etc. Thank you very, very much for your precious time and for the preparations and for showing us that mirror.